Right. So we all know March Madness, right? I mean, it's a crazy stretch of like, 68 college basketball teams battling it out in 67 games, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All the upsets and the drama.
Yeah.
It's pure excitement.
Pure sports entertainment.
But here's the thing that's really mind-blowing to me. At least the NCAA makes like over $1 billion every year from this one event.
It's wild.
It's $1 billion.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder, like, where does all that cash come from?
Right.
And who really benefits in the end?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to dig into today.
Okay.
Just to give everyone a sense of the scale.
Yeah.
March Madness is not just some tournament. It's a massive economic event.
It really is.
Millions of people are watching, arenas are packed, and there's this whole world of business going on around it.
Yeah.
We want to give you a clear picture of the financial machine that's driving March Madness.
Okay.
But also look at some of the, the controversies and debates that come with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Think of this as like a crash course on the business side of all the basketball action.
So let's break down this $1 billion operation.
Okay.
Where's the money coming from?
Well, the biggest chunk comes from television, without a doubt.
Okay.
The NCAA has this incredibly lucrative long-term contract with CBS and Turner Broadcasting.
Mm-hmm.
It's a massive agreement worth $8.8 billion just for the rights to broadcast the tournament.
$8.8 billion. It's hard to even imagine that much money.
It's a huge number.
And that's just for the broadcast rights.
Right.
I mean, during the games, you see commercials and logos everywhere.
Wow,
Sponsorships have got to be a huge part of it too, right?
Absolutely. Sponsorships are another major source of revenue.
Okay.
Big companies like Coca-Cola and Capital One, they're official partners of March Madness, and they shell out serious cash for that.
Yeah.
It's not just about slapping a logo on something.
Right.
They run these integrated marketing campaigns, fan engagement events in the arenas, and there's data sharing opportunities.
I see.
It's a really valuable partnership.
Yeah.
Being seen by so many people is key for them.
That makes sense.
Absolutely.
I mean, those brands are basically a part of the whole tournament experience now.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, people go to the games in person.
Yeah.
So ticket sales must bring in a decent amount too.
Definitely, ticket sales are a big contributor.
Okay.
Especially as you get deeper into the tournament, like the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, and of course the Final Four.
Yeah.
Those tickets can get really expensive.
Oh, I bet.
And with the arenas packed, the revenue from ticket sales is huge.
And then there's all the fan gear, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, jerseys, hats, everything.
Yeah.
Every team has merchandise, and the fans go crazy for it.
Yeah, fans love showing their support.
Yeah, they do.
And that translates into big bucks for the NCAA and their licensing partners.
It makes sense.
So when you add it all up, the TV deals, the sponsorships, the ticket sales, and all that merchandise, it's clear how they reach that $1 billion mark and probably even go beyond it.
It's amazing when you think about it, how much money this one event brings in.
It is.
How does it compare financially to other big sporting events?
Well, it's a little tricky to do a direct comparison because, different organizations are structured differently. But just looking at media rights and sponsorship income, March Madness is right up there with some of the biggest sporting events in the world.
Wow.
It puts college basketball, at least during this crazy tournament, in a really elite financial tier.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it is.
So it's clear that the NCAA is making a lot of money.
Yeah.
But what about the athletes actually playing in these games?
Right.
How much of this money goes to them?
For a long time, the answer was basically nothing. At least not directly from the NCAA.
Really?
Yeah, these athletes were mainly compensated through athletic scholarships.
Okay.
Which covered, tuition, housing, meals, things like that. But they didn't get paid directly for playing in these huge money-making games.
That always seemed a little off to me.
Yeah.
These players are putting in so much time and effort.
Yeah.
Their performance is what brings in all the viewers and the money.
Right.
And they weren't seeing any of it directly.
Exactly. That's why the introduction of name, image, and likeness deals, or NIL, has been such a big change.
So NIL lets them make money.
Yeah, it allows college athletes to earn money through endorsements, sponsorships, and other things related to their personal brand.
Okay.
So you might see a star player, especially someone on a team that's doing well in the tournament, appearing in local ads.
I see.
or even launching their own merchandise.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the scholarships anymore.
Right.
It goes beyond that now.
But it seems like not every player benefits equally from NIL, right?
It's true. The benefits aren't distributed evenly.
Okay.
Star players, especially those in the big high major conferences,
tend to have way more lucrative NIL opportunities
that makes sense.
than athletes in smaller programs.
Yeah.
The higher your profile and the better your team does in March Madness, the more valuable those deals become.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I guess the big question is, should these athletes be compensated more directly by the NCAA or their universities for playing in this massive event like March Madness?
Yeah, that's a debate that's going on right now.
Yeah.
Those who support more direct compensation argue that these athletes are the ones driving this whole billion-dollar industry.
Makes sense.
And they deserve a bigger share of the profits. They point to the physical demands, the time commitment, the risk of injuries, and the limited window for athletic careers.
Yeah.
But those who oppose direct pay often talk about the traditional amateur nature of college sports and worries about what it would do to the educational focus of universities and whether it would create an uneven playing field between different programs.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a complicated issue with valid points on both sides.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not an easy answer.
It's hard to ignore, the huge amount of money that March Madness brings in.
Right.
And then see the athletes not really getting a direct share of that success, even with NIL.
Yeah.
But let's switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
The NCAA isn't the only one making money from this, right?
No, not at all.
What about the cities that host the games?
That's another important part of the economic impact.
Okay.
The cities chosen to host March Madness games from the early rounds to the Final Four.
Yeah.
See a big influx of cash.
Yeah.
Just think about all the people who travel to these cities.
Okay.
The teams, their coaches, the support staff, media, and of course the fans.
So you're talking about a huge demand for hotels and restaurants and things like that?
Exactly. Hotels get booked up, often at higher prices than usual.
I bet.
Restaurants, bars, entertainment venues, they all see a big increase in business. And transportation services get a boost too. It's a real economic stimulus for these cities during the tournament.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Studies have shown that hosting a regional weekend or the Final Four can bring in tens of millions of dollars to the local economy.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
No wonder cities fight to be chosen as hosts.
Oh, yeah. It's a big deal.
And what about the universities themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Do they see any financial benefits besides, the exposure for their basketball program?
They do indirectly.
Okay.
Universities that make it to March Madness, especially those that go far, often see more applications from prospective students.
Really?
Yeah, and there's a surge in school pride and engagement from alumni, which can lead to more donations over time.
I see it.
And that national visibility boosts the university's overall reputation.
Yeah.
And brand recognition, which can have positive long-term effects on different departments.
That makes sense.
And initiatives throughout the university.
Okay. Even though the basketball team doesn't write a check to the university president after a big win, there are financial benefits that spread throughout the school.
Exactly. It's about that increased visibility and the positive things people associate with a successful basketball program.
Makes sense.
Especially during March Madness when everyone's watching.
Okay, so we've talked about the money flowing in and around March Madness, where it goes, and the overall economic impact. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows when it comes to the business side.
Right.
What are some of the criticisms and controversies surrounding how the NCAA handles the money from March Madness?
Well, like we touched on with player compensation, a major point of contention is whether the huge revenue generated by March Madness is being distributed fairly.
Okay.
Critics say that a big chunk of the money goes to the NCAA and its member institutions, while the athletes, who are essential to the whole thing, receive a relatively small and indirect portion.
Even with NIL?
Even with NIL.
Wow.
So the question of who benefits the most from this billion-dollar enterprise is a big issue.
So basically the argument is over who gets what piece of the pie.
Exactly. And there's debate about whether the current model really supports all levels of college athletics. And whether enough money is being put back into the well-being and opportunities of the athletes.
Yeah.
There are also concerns about how transparent the NCAA's finances are.
Okay.
And how all this money is actually being used.
And I know there have been lawsuits over the years about the NCAA's rules on amateurism and player compensation.
Yeah.
Are those issues still being debated and fought over in court?
Yeah, the legal situation is always changing.
Yeah.
There have been major court cases that challenge the NCAA's restrictions on athlete compensation.
Mm-hmm.
And those legal battles were a big reason why NIL was eventually allowed.
I see.
There are still ongoing discussions and the possibility of future lawsuits
Okay.
about whether college athletes should be considered employees
Oh, wow.
and be entitled to things like salaries and benefits.
That's a big change.
It is, and this is an area where we'll likely see more developments and reforms in the coming years as the legal and public debate continues.
It feels like we're at a turning point for college sports.
Yeah.
And March Madness, with all its money, is right at the center of it.
Absolutely. The huge popularity and financial success of March Madness really highlights those big questions about the relationship between college athletes, the universities, and all the money involved.
So let's sum it up. We've done a deep dive into the business of March Madness.
Yeah.
We've seen the huge revenue streams, those massive TV deals, the sponsorships, ticket sales from packed arenas, and the constant flow of merchandise sales.
Right.
All pushing the NCAA's earnings from this one event well over $1 billion.
A lot of money.
We talked about the complicated issue of player compensation, from the traditional scholarship model to the newer NIL opportunities, and the ongoing debate about whether athletes should be paid more directly. We also looked at the economic boost that March Madness gives to the host cities and the indirect benefits for the universities.
Right.
And finally, we discussed some of the criticisms about how fairly the revenue is distributed and the legal challenges to the NCAA's structure.
It's a lot to consider.
It is.
What really stands out to me is just how massive this financial ecosystem around a college sports tournament has become.
That's true.
The amounts of money involved are huge.
Yeah, they are.
And they have a real impact on everyone involved, from the players on the court to the communities that host the games.
So for you, the listener, after hearing all of this, what stood out to you the most about the business of March Madness?
Yeah.
Were you surprised by the amount of money involved? Or maybe by the changes that NIL has brought?
Yeah.
Take a minute to think about all the different perspectives. The NCAA running this huge event, the athletes playing their hearts out,
Right.
the universities trying to balance their athletic and academic goals, and of course the passionate fans who drive a lot of the excitement and the money.
And building on that, I want you to think about this. Given the huge financial success of March Madness,
Okay.
what one big change, if any, do you think would create a more equitable and sustainable model for the future of the tournament and college sports in general?
That's a good question.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, it is.
It's no easy answers, but it's definitely something to think about while you're watching that next game-winning shot.
For sure. Thanks for listening.
Absolutely.
See you next time.